Star Trek Volume 2, The Red Path. Now, this is Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly's sort of take on Star Trek, and the art, drops off a little in this volume. It looks like they do pretty well for the beginnings of things, and then, of course, they cheap things out as they go along. Tend to be how issues work with these things. You see, it's kind of a very boring start with even on the cover, where it's just like some very straightforward art of Ben Sisko holding an orb. We got Data, Scotty, Crusher, and Tom Paris. Now you're like, why are all those people, random characters from every series, on the cover? Well, this is what the concept of this whole high series. It is they're on a ship together under Ben Sisko. They start out with visiting Deep Space Nine here, at least. And it kind of doesn't really build on the last one so much, but they've got a ship together, and now they're going hunting like Bajoran orbs. So it's like a D&D quest to find orbs where they're going to go fight things like Star Wars. It's like, oof. It's fanfic on every level, and it's kind of rough just on the premise, just because of that. Now, the storyline's actually already intriguing. We start out with some personal stuff with Jake Sisko and Cassidy. You can see the art's kind of lower tier level, both on the colors, which are very flat and tough to look at times, and on the very flat art as well. So the personal stuff is pretty interesting. There's Cassie's got a daughter, and they're talking about their relationship and stuff. And then he goes out to like hunt these orbs as we go through here. I should mention there's a couple more characters. Even though they present like all these great characters, you have to do the self-insert like characters here. So there's like this like weird non-binary Vulcan dude who like lectured people on pronouns in the first one, and is like angsty and discovering himself with a little shaved head thing that's really cringy. There's also like a Andorian girl who's really cringy as well. And so they start out and they're going to Cardassia and end up there. At Cardassia, Sisko gets up on trial for crimes against Cardassia, and it turns out the trial thing is a trick by Damar to get all of his enemies in the same place. Eventually, it takes like 3 issues to get there, so it's extremely drawn out. And then they go off, and the ship goes to Empoknor, where like this like alien cult of like different people is around this orb, and it's a bunch of different people like Romulans, Klingons, and Cardassians all fighting together. And of course, that's what makes it feel like a weird D&D fanfic. And you see here's all the ships in the double page spread that goes on here. We get a little bit of weird inside dialogue of the Vulcan dude. And there's some cringy stuff here where like as they go through the fight, like the Andorian gal eventually goes, "Well, take that, space fascists." And you can tell again, like these are just them making their own fantasies about themselves as self-inserts with some not so impressive art through the process here. Look at this one, this panel layout where it's again just a copy paste all the way down the page. Geez, very very sad to see that. Then it wraps up, and they're going to go into the Day of Blood crossover with the other Defiant one that they're doing, which Defiant is actually far worse than this. The one thing I'll give credit for is that the narrative like has a beginning, middle, and end. It's easy to track. It's easy to follow. It's got an A and B plot, so it feels like a Star Trek episode in that regard. And it's at least somewhat intriguing what's going on here. The Defiant one is quite the opposite. There's no reason to even read it. Now, this annual is at the back. And this covers issues 7 through 10, which is 4 issues for that storyline. And then the annual issue, which is an oversized, different artist who's like maybe even a little bit worse in this regard than the first one. And there's like a hollow program where they're like taking over. Look at this like weird, bizarre like blob that's supposed to be James T. Kirk. It is a really rough drawing right here. Yikes. Eventually he's a hologram, and everybody else is holograms on here. I should also mention that Shax from Lower Decks joins the fleet here, and photons to be free. All these like holograms are like on strike basically, and they end up setting them up on a planet with their own holo emitters so they can go live out the rest of their days in peace at the end of it. So not a very compelling annual story, but like I said, the main story was like at least kind of readable. It's, the art's not amazing, and it is a tough premise to get into to begin with. But geez, honestly, it's time. I would abandon this Star Trek premise if I were them and kind of start from scratch to where it doesn't feel like a fanfic. I think it'd be great to have a Next Generation Titan, sort of crossover sort of thing. Maybe some Enterprise E action, because we really, have not had a lot of Enterprise E stories. And then maybe do some Deep Space Nine continuation with, the actual Deep Space Nine crew. The fact that Scotty is on here is like nonsensical. Like, how would a guy from 100 years ago, I know he came back in the Star Trek episode and all that, but how is he going to be like a starship engineer at his age and like with like outdated technology that he is not aware of by like 100 years? Crazy. But I do like the presentation. These little hardcovers they're making are pretty nice and enjoyable. And I do like hardcovers, so at least they're coming out with those. They'll give this a 5 out of 10 overall. Not that good, but the 5 is for effort, I guess. And that's all. Hit the like and subscribe button. We'll be back soon.